Off we go again. We are someplace different today. Penitentiary Glen, just right down the corner from Holden. We have come here before a while ago, I think maybe just once. It felt like this was the place today to go for a walk and see what's going on, and we'll give it a shot. Last time we ran out of battery at the end. It kind of cut me short, although it did end at a very auspicious place, which was probably appropriate. Today we will see what happens. Could end up in the same situation since I tend to talk so long, but we're starting from the parking lot, and I thought about walking all the way down to the end of this very long trail, which we've done before, and see how far we get, and maybe we'll talk along the way. So yeah, kind of cool. What's cool here is there's this sort of open field that you can just kind of walk on here. Go any which way you want. And I think we'll just kind of wander out here for a moment. You can actually go all the way to the end of this field and take a right. There's a trail down there. It takes you up a ways. I don't know, I could do that. Or I can go over there and then go through the woods that way. Maybe I'll just go this way, because that's a little longer, given that I only have about an hour of recording time from the battery. We might need to, I guess it doesn't matter what I record for an hour, whether it's this or something else, but this is sort of the more normal way to go. More people here, so I'll probably keep it chill until we get off in the deep woods before we go deep inward. Kind of a good analogy, I think. In our conversations are probably very similar in that we start at the periphery and then we go deeper and deeper into the woods until we hit the deepest spot, and then we come out. And I think that's what we do with our discussions too. We start sort of casually, just strolling in the woods. There's a rabbit that just crossed the path. And then as we continue trekking inwards, we go wherever the inquiry leads us and see what happens. And that's the beauty of it. I love this because I never know what we're going to talk about. When things just kind of flow and you don't plan it out, you don't script it, of course. How horrid would that be? But you just take it one step at a time, just like you're walking. Just put one foot in front of the other and keep moving and see where you end up. I happen to know where we're going to end up, at least physically, today, but I don't know where we're going to end up psychologically. It could go in many directions. And the beauty of the unknown, which we talked about last time, is that we don't know what's going to happen. And that not knowing is part of the beauty. It's a newness, there's a creation, it's emerging. Right, emerging in the moment. What is to be. It's quite a bit of a drop off down there to the water below. Definitely need to come here more often. I say that every time I go somewhere else, because I remember how beautiful it is. Here and everywhere. I used to come here quite a bit. It's kind of years, sometimes one year I'll come here more than I will Holden. Some years I come to Holden more than here. It just fluctuates. So maybe the first part of this video is just, we're just walking, which is great. I hear some singing or music coming up. I don't know what's going on. There's not really anything up here that would explain that unless somebody just has a radio on the trail. There's no cabins or campsites that I'm aware of. Could be from somebody's house. There's a few houses across the street up here. If they're playing their music really loud, we would hear it over here, but it's a little louder than it should be. We'll find out. So we're headed in that direction. I always like walking is definitely symbolic of inquiry as I'm examining it. So we start off in this nicely paved trail. Everything's orderly and contained and structured. And then we're going to go off the trail. Well, not off the trail, off this nicely groomed paved trail into a more natural trail that's dirt trail off to the left. I mean, there's a trail to the right here where between those two stone pillars. We stopped there last time and I explained a little bit about there used to be a bridge that went across the ravine. Yeah, the music's getting louder. Yeah, there's a party going on in the woods that I wasn't invited to. So now we're walking down this trail to get to the water. You can start to hear the water. It's like a little waterfall over there. Hi. Hey, bud. Blessed silence. So every walk is like a journey. You know, you start off, you may be going the same way you've gone before, but it's going to be unique, it's going to be different. I mean, obviously, like, just you are not the same. Nothing's the same. Everything's different. not a lot of water here right now. A lot of times this is the water level here is higher. We haven't gotten rain in a few days, so that's why. It'll be good to actually get a little bit of rain to balance things out. Let's go up a little bit of a hill here. Nothing much. As we go deeper into the woods, deeper into the mind, I feel like I'm hypnotizing you, which maybe we are. As we take each step along the path, we're taking a step deeper into our mind to see what we find hiding in there. Can we shed light on all that is inside our mind, the conscious and the subconscious? Which is interesting when you examine just that notion of the subconscious mind, conscious mind. These are just ideas. We may take these ideas as fact, but they are not. And really, maybe the only difference between what we call the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is what you are aware of. And if you are aware of your whole mind, nothing is hidden. Nothing is subterranean. I think that's a lot of what we're talking about, is no stone left unturned. You know, not that we need to explore every nook and cranny of the mind separately. That would take forever, but just to see the entire mind as one whole and not separated into the conscious and subconscious mind. Everything can be seen. Nothing can really be hidden in the mind. It's just what we choose to see, choose to look at, or if we focus our attention, if we're concentrating on something, then everything else is blocked out. And you could say the conscious mind is only what we're concentrating on for the moment, and the subconscious is there, but we're not conscious of it. And we could talk about dreams, and maybe dreams are, parts of that subconscious mind coming to the surface so that we're aware of that. But if we were aware of all that during the day, there really wouldn't be a need for dreams. At least dreams in the mental sense. No, dreams. I guess I was going to say sleep. The body needs rest, but it doesn't necessarily need to dream if it was orderly all the time. It's because our brain goes through disorder during the day that at night the brain tries to bring it back to order in some way or another by really just paying attention to all those parts. If you think about what a dream is, it's paying attention to the parts that you neglected during the day, that you didn't pay attention to during the day. And by the way, that music is coming from a house over there to the left. There's a street. So it was just very loud. It sounded like it was coming from within the park, but it's not. So yeah, if you were aware of everything during your waking hours, I don't think there would be a need to dream, because the brain can get disorderly. Right, and I think it becomes disorderly because we are not aware. We're not in that state of awareness, choiceless awareness or attention that we've talked about previously. And when you're not in that state of attention, then you're missing a lot. Things are happening that you're not seeing, and then, but your brain is still recording all that and needs, wants awareness on all that, right, to put things back in order. But it's interesting because that is what a lot of life is about, order. And we went into this before, and we live now mostly a disorderly life. And that if there was no disorder in our life, then there would be no, I don't think we would dream. I can't say, because I still dream. So there must be disorder in my life. But that's why this is an exploration that we're going on together, right? I'm just as much in this process of inquiry as you may be. And it's not that I have some knowledge that I'm trying to pass on. It's not. I'm just pointing out maybe that the limitations of knowledge, so that maybe we both see that, because seeing the limitations of knowledge is something we can do, right? It's a fact, it's real. There's things that we can't do, and there's things we can do, and we can only do what we can do. We can't know what order is, but we can observe disorder. And just like, because we sometimes don't know the difference between fact and ideas or opinions, we've talked about that before, so we confuse the issue, I think. And yeah, sometimes I like when, I sort of lost my train of thought there, and I was fortunate for it, because it's like it probably wasn't worth going down anyways. Like, we probably talked too much. If the words are necessary, they'll be there. If the words are not necessary, they won't be there. And words are not always necessary, and often can get in the way of just seeing, direct perception, observing. And if we can observe without the me, observe without this bundle of memories that I call me, which is the past, then we're really seeing something. This was a fun trail because it is just a straight trail. I did take a little bit of a roundabout there. I could have turned left as soon as we came up the hill and taken a shortcut, but I like this way better. It brings us around to where that little pond was, and it kind of goes out into the open field and then comes back into the woods. That's another thing I always like, is when you're on a trail that goes through different changes in the terrain. You're out in the open at 1 minute, then you go into the woods, then maybe you're going by a stream, and it changes as you go. Different things come up, and then you move on. gosh, the number of times I've walked in these woods when I was studying Buddhism years ago. I can recall walking through these trails, listening to, Thich Nhat Hanh was always one of my favorites. Ajahn Brahm and Ajahn Chah, who I could not remember the name of in one of our previous videos, but I just remembered who was his teacher, who wrote a good book. Well, he didn't write it, I don't think directly. Or maybe he did. I think maybe it's excerpts of it from his discussions and talks, called Food for the Heart. It's a good book. I mean, if you want to read books, there's a lot of books you could read. And reading can be important. I mean, I've read a lot. It's just that sometime, in fact, at the very end of his book, he says, put down the book. You know enough. I thought that was the best part of the whole book. You know, he talks about a lot of things. This is Ajahn Chah's book, Food for the Heart. And, you know, I always admire these people. Everyone has their perspective. I think what's interesting is, you know, to listen to what people have to say. Don't become attached to what they say. Investigate the truth of what they say on your own. And then there's never a problem. You don't have to shun anybody away. You don't have to not listen to things. Listen to what people have to say. Just let the truth resonate. Right? The process of having, you know, seeing the truth. You know, you might have insight, or insight might arise by hearing what someone says. I found that book very valuable. I found a lot of books valuable. But I guess I did find, I guess I would say the most illuminating things came from a lot of the Buddhist books that I read, but never from the suttas themselves, or by reading or trying to memorize like what the Buddha said. It was always more through the living tradition, what is happening now. So like different Buddhist teachers and listening to them. I used to listen to Thich Nhat Hanh all the time, and there's a lot of videos of him. He was a very interesting fellow, friends with Martin Luther King Jr., who nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize at one point back in the 1960s. I could rattle off the names of his books, but there's many. Not worth me going through the list. Look him up if you're interested. Read some of what he has. Read, if you're gonna read, I'm not against reading. It's just reading is knowledge, right? And we have to, at some point, go beyond knowledge. As Ajahn Chah says at the end of his book, he makes a point of saying, you spent all this time reading and learning, you know enough, you've heard enough, now put the book down. And now in his view, I think he says start practicing or start living what it is. And we've talked about the differences with that practicing is not exactly how I would put it. I would say put the book down and now free yourself, put the ideas down along with the book. Don't carry those ideas with you. It's like a walk right now. We can enjoy the walk and go through it, but I don't carry this walk with me when I leave. I enjoy what I'm walking through, but I don't say, I wish I was back on that trail at this point and saw that tree again. I saw the tree, saw that it was beautiful, and moved on. And that's often how I treat these books and these people. I listen to Ram Dass. I love a lot of what he says. It can be beautiful. You can see beautiful things in words. Words can be beautiful. Poems. Mary Oliver is one of my favorite poets. Actually, there's a documentary that I believe just came out about her, or is going to come out very shortly, which I have to look that up again. And now she was someone who really saw the world for what it is. She experienced a lot of pain and trauma. She was sexually abused by her father, which is awful, and only came out later in her life. She had a partner, a woman partner, I can't remember her name, she lived the rest of her life with, and you know, she was an amazing person, just a really observant person, as many poets are. You know, they express what they see in words, and even though the words can be pale reflections of truth, you know, sometimes there's some resonance in those words that can carry you so far, or at least you can appreciate, you know, if you have the you know, if you can see what the truth behind the words, you know, then it's something beautiful. So yeah, check out Mary Oliver. Also, there's many YouTube videos of her reading her own poetry. Check out the trailer for the new documentary for her that I think is very interesting. Well, yeah, I do. I don't know how many people would, but I find that interesting. You know, I find people's lives interesting in the different ways that they've lived. Let's make sure we're still connected here. Hi. Last time I took the videos in the wrong format, episode number 50, which I wanted to be a monumental episode since it was number 50. And of course I messed it up. Somehow I inadvertently switched it to the 4:3 format instead of the high definition format that I normally record in, and that hopefully we are recording in now. I could have sworn I switched it, but it reverted back to that setting, and then that required some conversion of the format, and then I don't know, the videos got a little glitchy. I noticed when I was playing them back that there were some glitches. I like to listen, this may sound strange, but I do like to listen to my own videos back later. I like to review them just once. You know, I listen to it and say, what the heck was I thinking? Where did that come from? I'm surprised by my own words. And I think that's why I listen to them, because it's kind of fascinating to me, because sometimes I do feel like the words are coming from somewhere else, some deeper part of my mind or wherever. You know, the unfiltered or unconditioned part of the mind. The unconditioned mind, that's another phrase we could go into. There's a book about Jiddu Krishnamurti. I'm trying to think, was it by David Moody? I don't know, it's called The Unconditioned Mind, and it's about Krishnamurti. It's a book I have that I have still not read. There's many books I have. You know, and also my Audible credits are piling up. I think I have 13 Audible credits at the moment that I'm not using, because I used to read a lot, and then, I don't know, I just kind of lost my fascination with reading like fiction. I used to read a lot of Stephen King books and a lot of Buddhist books. I mean, I would, like I mentioned, the one Food for the Heart by Ajahn Chah, or Ajahn Brahm wrote books on guided, you know, guides to their form of meditation and bliss, I think, or bliss, meditation, bliss, and beyond, I think is the title of one of his books that I found interesting. And that's when I was studying the jhanas, which I talked about before, which are these deep, you know, deep so-called meditative states that at one time I thought was the way. In fact, I'll just mention there's another fellow, his name is Leah Brasington, Leah Brasington, who also teaches these jhanas, which are these deep states of meditation that I don't know how to put it, like some Buddhist traditions admire that, some not as much. They all understand meditation, but in different ways. You know, there's Vipassana meditation and insight meditation, Vajrayana, I believe, and all these words. I mean, I've encountered them. Some I retain, some I don't. But to me, it's like I didn't hold on to any of that, because I did find what I found unsatisfactory about that whole process is that it was becoming a process, right? It was becoming a seeking of something to reach an end point. And when I saw that, that was, you might say, another insight that that's not the way, you know. And it's sometimes not easy to do that when you look to someone with some authority and think, well, that person sounds like they know what they're talking about. And Leah Brasington was one of those. I mean, so is Thich Nhat Hanh, so is Ajahn Brahm, who also has many YouTube videos. If you're interested, look any of these people up, right? There's, I mean, I'm not saying what you should do or not do. Ram Dass, his biography, self-biography, I wouldn't say autobiography, but I think I'm getting it confused here, was called, was it Being Nobody or Becoming Nobody? Becoming Nobody, I think, which is actually an excellent title for a book. You know, and people come at wisdom in different ways. I can't say what people know and what people don't know. And what, you know, it's just the truth of another is not my truth, right? Because there is no my truth, really, and their truth. There's just truth. Wherever you see it, how you see it. You know, it's more about what gets in the way. Everybody has different obstructions to seeing the truth. That may be the difference among us, but truth doesn't differ. But there's all these different obstructions, and once the obstructions are removed, then truth is just there. It's not anything, you know, fantastical or glorious. It's just the truth that always was and always will be. Not a truth that it changes in time or becomes something or is something. But yeah, I really admired Ram Dass for quite a while. But you know, you can get lost in that sort of stuff. And I think I did, right? You can, it's very attractive, very appealing to look at somebody like that and say, they have it together. I want to be like that person. Or they must know something that I don't know. And when you see that person in that way, that they are the teacher, you are the student, it's like it destroys you and the teacher. It's, you know, that separation between the teacher and the student, that belief that that person has something you don't have, just sets up a difference right away. We talked about separation, right? There's a separation, and that separation destroys love, destroys compassion. Immediately when there's separation, there is conflict. It's one and the same. We talked about this before, about seeing truth is like truth acts. Truth is the seeing, and the seeing is action. Because once you see clearly, you know exactly what to do. There's no question or doubt or uncertainty when things are crystal clear, right? I'm departing off many paths here, but many tributaries to my thinking, but whatever I feel is the most important direction, I go in. You know, as I start to see it, it comes to me. You know, and then I like to go down that path. It's like an exploration. And then sometimes like I don't, like now I'm having even difficulty, like I broke myself from that, what I was saying, that it's hard for me to almost return to that because it was going somewhere. And then my thinking brain came in and sort of stopped the progress, right? Stopped what was happening. And then it breaks off. So I suppose I shouldn't do that. Let it go where it wants to go. Yeah, so where were we? You know, it's funny because I just don't remember. Because it's not like a memory. I'm not storing it, you know? And that's interesting because, like, normally we store, you know, like our brain is like a recording device, but then there is this state, if you want to call it that, where it's like you're just going with what's happening and you're not directing it, you're not guiding it, you're not also remembering it, because it's gone the minute the words come out. They're dead, right? Words are like dead leaves. You know, they shouldn't be recorded. They shouldn't have any lasting power longer than the moment in which they're spoken. You know, the energy of the words is there at that moment, and then it's just a memory after that. You know, and the memories are dead things, as we've gone into many times. So the power is now, is this process, or what is occurring now in the brain that's producing words, not the words themselves. The words have very little meaning. What has more meaning is the energy of insight that may produce words or it may not produce words. Oh, I do remember what we were talking about, though. Truth and, oh gosh, it's gone again. Fleeting. Wow. That's interesting. Words are very fleeting today. You know, they're just sort of like stones skipping on the water. And then eventually, plop, there they go, and they're gone. Just like the rock gets absorbed by the water. It's not a bad feeling either, because, you know, when you try to, like, remember or try to, like, bring something up from the past, even if it's just a minute ago or 30 seconds ago, it's like, that's old news. It's not what's now. That's even one fraction of a second ago is old and dead. Let it go. It's gone. There's no reason to attach to it. And I think that's why when I'm in this state of mind, I don't know what to call it, there's very little attachment. Well, I don't know where the words are coming from, and I also don't know where they're going. It's like I know when the words are being spoken, but not, you know, there's very little recording going on other than the GoPro, which is recording, so I can review it later. But right now, it's like it doesn't matter to me what we're saying, and I have no purpose, I have no plan, and the words are just coming out as they may, from wherever they're coming from, who knows. The deep recesses of my mind, or the superficial parts of my mind, or maybe I don't have any deep recesses. It's all superficial, just like the stones skipping on the surface. All the while, here we are in the woods. What's real in front of us, what's true, is just this, in this moment, nothing else. No past moment, no future moment, just this. And it's just not hard, you know. There's nothing magical about it, really. It's just what is, if you see it. And what is not magical. It's what's real. There's nothing more real than what is. nothing more true. That's our ideas, and that build up all these fantastical notions. And you don't go with any of those ideas. So, as I was saying before, I set down all these ideas from Buddhism, from Thich Nhat Hanh. We were talking about Ram Dass. Some of this is coming to me. And fun while you're reading it, but when you put the book down, that knowledge that you accumulated, just don't feel like it's just knowledge. Right? Someone else's life that you're reading about. I did say that I find it interesting to read other people's lives. I do like that. It's, everybody's life is like a book to be read, including your own. Right? And the most important book to read is the book of yourself. And I think this is when I sort of stopped reading, stopped listening, because I saw there being this process that was occurring, and that process was, leading me somewhere, but not towards the truth. It's just another diversion, another form of entertainment. I mean, this is actually why, I think even lately I've been recording videos, even listening less to Krishnamurti, who I used to listen to all the time. And now I think I'm realizing what he's always said, which is, you got to do this yourself. Don't listen to this old man up here on this elevated platform, which gives me no authority. I'm just a few feet off the ground so you can see me better. He always used to say that in his talks. He was the most humble person there was. And listening to him is like watching a beautiful flower or smelling. It's more of a fragrance. There's a fragrance to his speaking that is not the words themselves. What he's saying in the words sometimes are not even important. There's a fragrance that's behind it all. And that fragrance is just like, just because you've smelt a beautiful flower before doesn't mean you don't want to smell that beautiful flower again. So I would listen to a lot of his videos, and some people would say, well, why are you listening to all his videos when all he talks about all the time is not having teachers, not learning? And it's like, but I'm not listening to them to learn. I'm not listening to them to gain knowledge. I'm listening to them because they smell good. They smell like the flowers. And I like to go for a walk every day, I sometimes like to smell the flowers of Jiddu Krishnamurti's speaking, because it comes from a place of beauty and truth. But the words, if you try to take his words and walk away with meaning from his words, you'll be lost just as much as anything else. So the more important thing is to listen to what he's actually saying, which is, don't listen to me. Don't make me an authority. Don't make anyone an authority. Don't even create your own authority. Don't become your own authority, which is the trickiest trick of all. Because we can do that. We can reject everything. Everything anyone else has said, reject all the traditional religions, but then start our own new religion, right? Or our new authority. Think we've figured it out and now come up with a set of rules to live by, and now I've done it. Well, that's what everyone that started every new religion always thought. So don't do that. Don't make yourself out to be an authority either, because it's just as bad. It's just more to tie you down. Don't be tied down by anything. You don't need any rules. You don't need any guidance. None of it. Just put one step in front of the other and see where it leads you. Now it's led us to this very open space, which I know I paused at last time we came through here. Talk about juxtaposition. Oh, there's some deer running in the field over there. That's a beautiful thing to see. But then to see all these electrical wires, I can almost feel the buzzing from these. I'm not conspiratorial in any sense of the word, but I mean, electromagnetic radiation is definitely passing through my body right now in higher amounts than normal. Whether that is harmful or not is another matter, or whether I care is another matter, I suppose. But a lot of people have trouble with these wires. But you know, the juxtaposition of technology, which these wires and these supports represent, with the nature that's surrounding us, is just kind of an interesting contrast. You know, how once again, this is similar to the path in the last video where we talked about the plowing of the field to create a path to walk down. And it's like sort of the similar thing here. They had to, they must have had to tear down all these trees. I can't imagine how much work that must have been to place these structures here that carry the electricity to everyone's home. But it's you know, it's not done in a totally ungraceful way. I mean, we're still surrounded by all this beauty. It's just you come out here and you see this, which is necessary if you use electricity in your home. I mean, everything that you rely on comes from this. So this is necessary for that. And if you can find a harmony, you know, with nature, as I think they've done here, I mean, fairly well, to give them credit. But anyways, it is what it is. So we will stop and look and then move on. So yeah, I don't know where we were, if we were nowhere, probably. And I guess we're still there. So we're just walking along here, enjoying the woods. But I think I do recall what I was sort of talking about was being a light to yourself. So we can put it that way, which Mr. Krishnamurti said many times. And the Buddha, in some ways, has said similar things. To be a light to yourself, to not rely on anyone to tell you what's true, but to figure it out on your own, not through the accumulation of knowledge, but through direct observation. And I think I've said this before, but one of the greatest things about Buddhism was, to me, was always the story of the Buddha's enlightenment when he sat under a Bodhi tree after spending many years of suffering himself and studying the jhanas, studying all these other meditations that we talked about earlier, you know, things that Leah Brasington would teach you, and things that, you know, the Vietnamese or Tibetan or Thai, which Ajahn Brahms and Ajahn Chah comes from the Thai forest tradition of Buddhism, which is an interesting form of Buddhism, you know, and there's a history behind all these different forms. But again, it's a form, it's a particular path, it's one thing that now separates you from everything else. And that's not what, like, don't want to be separate from everything else. I don't want to be a monk of the Thai forest tradition and then not appreciate Thich Nhat Hanh, who's from the Vietnamese Buddhist tradition, right? Or the Tibetan Buddhists, Rinpoche, you know, the Rinpoches, Iyengar Rinpoche. I mean, I studied some of what he had to say along the way. I mean, yeah, I mean, you could spend your whole life just studying different things, and where's it going to get you? You know, that's the realization is like, it's so tantalizing to think that there's just something you have to learn, and then what? What is it you're expecting, right? This is what's important, and this is what I started asking myself. What am I expecting to learn? What am I expecting to gain from all of this? And I remember I tossed around the idea at one point, I mean, not really, of just like going to a monastery. Like Thich Nhat Hanh has these Buddhist temples that are here in the USA, across the world. I mean, as everyone does, right? All different traditions have different temples, different things. And, there was a time when I thought that was maybe the way. And of course, but I have a family, I have a job, I have responsibilities. But I mean, some part of me was like, because the tantalizing nature of it, which is why I use that word to say, drop everything, go this way. Your spiritual life is, the most important thing, and nothing, comes from that. And so, like, if you think this is the way to truth, then, who wouldn't want to follow the way of truth, right? So you can get to the point where you feel that way about Christianity or about Hinduism, where you're sure this is right? And I was, down that path a bit in Buddhism, I would say. And, but then, again, it's like, but be aware of what's happening. Be aware of what your mind is doing, and why. Why are you seeking that? Why do you want to run away from this world, this society? And I mean, there's a lot of terrible things happening in this society, right? It's not like we don't know the answer to that question. I mean, we know that when you look at this world and you see all the horrible things and the violence and the killing and everything that you see on the news or read in the newspaper every single day, or on the police scanner, which I never should have got that app, and you see everything that's happening, it's sometimes right down your street, like literally down your street. And a few houses down, you hear happening, and it's like stuff you just didn't know before, right? But it's there, it's the truth. You can't cover it up or hide it. But that's the world we live in, filled with violence and irrationality and disrespect for other people, lack of love and compassion, hardness. That's the world we live in, this society. And so it's a natural tendency to say, I just want out of this society. Like, take me out. Put me somewhere else where these things don't happen. But then you realize that is, you're separating yourself. You're trying to separate yourself from this world and this society and say, I want to be somewhere else. I want to live in some other secluded community where, you wake up every day, you have a routine, maybe you recite mantras, you maybe have silent, days, whatever. There's some method, practice, process to being a monk in a monastery. And there is something to be said about that, that can bring a sense of peace to you, to get away from it all, to get away from all this craziness. But the craziest thing of all is, but it's still there. It's still all there. And it's all in this world. You can't, just because you move to another location, doesn't mean that craziness isn't still going on. It's still there, still happening. And if you really have love and compassion for the world, you want to end that craziness, that insanity, right? You want to figure out how to bring about some change or some transformation that, in our normal life, where we live, not somewhere else in some monastery or something, but like where we live. And, look at your relationships around you, right? With the people you know, and in your family, and in your society, and your friends, and everybody else, and say, that is my life. And instead of wanting to run away from that, to see the life that you have, that you are, who you are. Not to run away from anything, but to actually just see that life, maybe for the first time, as it really is. See the truth of it all. The truth in that reality, that your reality right now, living here, living wherever you live, in your town, your life, doing the job that you do and what you do, and just to see that and not run away from it. Because we always want to run away to someplace better, more peaceful. I mean, I guess I run away to here. This is my peaceful place. It's not as much a running away. Well, there's normally water. Definitely we haven't gotten enough rain, because this is normally like gushing water. We're gonna have to come back on a day when it's rained, because this is almost nearly stagnant. This is like a stream bed, and it's normally filled with water to where you have to walk on these stones to get across. And I don't have to do that today. So yeah, we need rain. So hopefully it does rain. I guess I didn't realize how little rain we've had. I mean, we've had a lot of nice, warm, dry days, which are great for walking, great for us, but then our, vegetative friends and animals and everything else that lives out here needs that water just as much as we do. So yeah, so I mean, I guess, you could say like, oh, well, aren't you escaping every day to the parks that you go to? And I would say, well, just because you go to a park doesn't mean you're escaping. It means you're appreciating the beauty that is around you, not trying to escape the life that you have, but this becomes part of your life, right? That these beautiful moments, these beautiful places have a place in your life. And we've said many times that the art of living is putting everything in its proper place. So there's a proper place for me walking in the park. There's a proper place for taking care of my family, a proper place for doing what I see as productive contributions to society, and whatever skill I have to contribute to society. All the while thinking, though, right, is there something else I could be doing? Is there something that could be more meaningful than what I'm doing? Everyone asks that question. But then I realize, though, that the asking of meaning like that is sort of an irrelevant question, because that's thought trying to figure out if there's some other way of living that's not coming from truth, right? And so it's just more seeking of something different, something better, improvement. And I think that's where all the trouble is. The trouble arises when we seek something different or better than who or what we are or where we are. Or we look at our life and say, I wish I had a different life, whatever it may be, a better life, life where I did this, X, Y, and Z instead of A, B, and C. Isn't that what everyone does? And isn't that just the same? And see, when you see that, you see you're not special. You're not the only one. And that's what all human minds do. They all wonder about that. They all have those thoughts, have those desires, and whatever you want to call it, longings, seeking fulfillment in many different ways, physical as well as so-called spiritual ways. And see, and I guess just to come back to this thing again, which is where, I don't know, maybe there was like a switch that flipped in me that just said, end the seeking. And it was like maybe an insight, if you want to call it that. I guess that's what it was. And what's interesting about it is that it wasn't as a result of the things I was learning. I didn't have to read those books, or it was an understanding beyond all that knowledge that this is not the way, right? That none of these are the way, right? It was, and I do think that Jiddu Krishnamurti helped me to see that, because when I started listening to him, and it was about having no authority, like he starts almost every talk with that, and it really got me to thinking, well, that's the one thing I haven't tried. I guess in some way most of my life was lived in that way. I mean, I didn't follow any religious tradition. I was born Catholic, spent my early years growing up in Catholicism, but never feeling a part of it, thankfully. Never, just because I did, I never felt like I belonged to anything. Like, and that's actually what I think is interesting, right? Is I've never, so we are at the end. I think I've said this before. This is the Kirtland Connector Trail. So we've walked kind of the entire length of Penitentiary Glen, and we're going to head back now. So, never actually walked all the way up that hill, but it comes out at like Kirtland City Hall or something. So let's just walk back. I think it takes another hour or so to walk back, and we got plenty of time. The sun isn't going to set for another 2 hours. So I've never felt like I've belonged. I guess that's something that I thought was a bad thing when I was younger. And now I see it as the greatest truth of all, because you're free, right? When you don't belong to anything, you're free. And I guess I always appreciated that freedom in some way. Always. Maybe differently than how I see it now, which is more absolute. But even when I was younger, I didn't really belong to sports teams, so I didn't have to go to practices and spend all that time trying to become better and beat other teams and become the winner versus the loser, which I never quite understood, just the whole concept of that, the winners and losers. Why do we have to have winners and losers? Can't we all just work together, cooperate rather than compete? Never really quite made sense to me. So I never had any strong desire to play sports. The only sports I ever played was when I was really young. I played Little League Baseball, and I remember specifically it was because I wanted to meet girls. Someone told me that that was a good way to meet girls. They'll respect you if you belong to a sports team. So I joined. I mean, I don't know. I must have been 10 or something. I don't even know. 12, maybe. It seems like I was younger than where I would have been interested in girls, but I was. I remember that being my motivation. And it didn't work. Not that I can recall. I got hit with the baseball a few times. I remember they always had me scrunched down. I was never very good at baseball, and they always would tell me, your strategy is to scrunch down and make the strike zone as small as possible and just don't swing at anything. And of course I never listened. I swung at everything. And I didn't scrunch down because I wasn't there to do that. I was there to play. That also didn't make sense to me because, again, it's like, well, I'm there to play. I'm not there. But then it's like, well, for the team to win, right, that was like their strategy. Use me just to get me out or whatever. I remember I hit a few, that were pretty good. I mean, I had my moments, far and few between. But it was enjoyable. I got to meet some people and I had some fun. But, like, that was it. I mean, that was in grade school. I never did sports in high school. Never even joined the chess club or whatever. I mean, the only other thing I would belong to was Star Trek fan club, which I regretted joining. That wasn't me either. Like, so many people become obsessive over certain ideas, and I never understood that. I love Star Trek to this day. I started watching some of the Star Trek movies again after talking about it with my friend Mark, and we just were reminiscing, and I'm like, yeah, I always loved that. So, just watching them again, just for fun, though. Just for fun, right? Not because I want to belong to the Star Trek universe, or I want to live in that universe, or pretend that I do and have all these fantasies about it. And I'm just saying that's not for me. I mean, for anyone that it is, and I know people where that is, but it's just not for me. It never really was. So I felt out of place there. Even when I belonged to that Star Trek fan club, I felt out of place. We had uniforms we had to put on and act out scripts. It wasn't for me. And eventually I just dropped out of that, and I always enjoyed more solitary activities. Inward, I guess I've always been more of an introspective person, try to figure things out in my own way. So, I mean, I guess I've always had this spark of individuality in me, which was just, and it's not like I wanted to be apart from everybody, but I I needed sort of that aloneness. Even when I was young, I'd go to the library, ride my bike to the library by myself, grab books, read them by myself, sometimes with a friend, occasionally, but like not, it wasn't a requirement. And I did a lot of knowledge seeking, a lot of reading, a lot of learning, had a computer, learned things, figured out I was good at math, science, and went that path for many years. But I guess that's where all this was coming from is, I was Catholic when I was young, but I never held on to that. Not that there was things that I remember hearing that Jesus said that I'm like, made perfect sense. Like, love others and treat your enemy as yourself, love your enemy, treat others the way you want to be treated. I mean, it's just all sort of common sense. Like, those things made sense to me. The rest of it, the laws and the traditions, and especially the closed-mindedness and the hypocrisy that I saw, did not appeal to me. And I felt like those people weren't really understanding the message anyways. Like, there was a lot of contradictions, right? A lot of inconsistencies, and I questioned things. And some teachers were respectful of my questioning, and some were not. And I think just in the end, it was just something that I just felt didn't have meaning to me. Right? I never had like an averse reaction to, be anti-religious in a sense. Like, I never felt any need to be anti-anything. I just, in the way that you lose interest in a child's game, I just lost interest in this stuff because it just had very little meaning to me. It was very fanciful, very of the mind and imaginative. And you build up these ideas, and then you try to live in this world of ideas, and even then I saw that didn't seem true to me. So I went through a path of science, thinking that that was the way. Science is about facts and observation and truth. And I will just say that I learned a lot, I know a lot, I can do a lot when it comes to math and probability and statistics and physics and engineering. But then I also realized that's not the truth that I was fundamentally looking for when I was a child, and I first went into physics because I wanted to understand what all this was about at a deep level, have a deep understanding of everything. And physics promised me that, and I could have gone deeper, into particle physics and all that, but they don't have it all figured out, right? So there's no complete understanding in physics anyways. So I'd still be searching for truth. And I guess in the same way that I saw the religious searching was leading nowhere, I also felt like the scientific searching was leading nowhere. When you really want to understand everything holistically, neither of those provides the answer. One is more based on observation and fact. The other is based on ideas that have propagated down through generations that may or may not conform with or comport with fact. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't agree, but that conflict between science and religion also never made sense to me. Why should the two be any different? Why can't there be one truth? That truth encompasses scientific truth, it encompasses religious truth. There should be no difference. If there is a difference, then you haven't found truth. Right? That's the clear message. And so, but again, that doesn't mean that there's a path of knowledge, because both of those are paths of knowledge. Right? Religious tradition is knowledge stored in religious texts or in traditions passed down through the generations, but there is some codified set of beliefs, dogma, traditions. That's knowledge. Anything that comes from the mind is knowledge. That's all it is. On the other hand, you have science, which is also knowledge, because it's of the mind, of the brain. It's a different way of going about it. Different questions that are being asked, but it's the same. It's the same in that they are all limited by the limitations of thought, the limitations of the brain. I don't want limitations, right? I don't want limited. So when I saw that both were limited, both were incomplete, both were partial, not whole, then I started asking other questions like, what is not limited? What is whole? What doesn't suffer from these limitations? And then I think through, then I picked up the Bible again, took a look at it, said, yep, still the same Bible I remember. I didn't see any truth in there. And I studied Ram Dass, Buddhism, you name it. And again, there's glimmers of truth, right? Glimmers of truth. I mean, Jesus said many things that made a lot of sense that I think have totally been corrupted by these institutional religions. Because humans have a tendency to organize truth. So even if a person like Jesus, like Buddha, like Krishna comes along and has insight, trying to communicate that insight is the problem. Insight has to be seen, not explained, right? And this is the conundrum. I think this is what has led us to all these problems is we recognize that somebody sees the world very differently than everybody else, and we don't know where that comes from. It's a mystery to us, right? So we attribute it to some divine influence or whatever supernatural entity we imagine in our minds, and then we elevate those people to the stature of gods or prophets or whoever, and then we create these monstrous institutions around them that don't really resemble at all the original core message or truth of what was said, because it's gone so far past that point, right? And if you which I guess I did, right, you start examining these institutions against what they even themselves say.